Hi, I'm Laura Goodman. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the president of PFLAG Rockland, and I'm so happy to be here today to do an artist interview. I just want to talk a little bit about how I first got involved with PFLAG Rockland. I have a transgender daughter who's 20 years old, and when she began her transition about 5 years ago, I was desperate to get information and to get support and to find people who knew what I was about to go through. So I found out about PFLAG and I joined the support group, which were in person. They were in person at that time. And the minute I walked in, I knew exactly that I was in the right place. Then 5 years later, I'm the president and I co-facilitate 2 support groups a month. And I feel so grateful that I get to join these parents on their journeys with their kids. My daughter's transition turned out to be one of the most incredible things to ever happen to our family. We've all grown so much. I've had so many gifts as a result of her transition. One of them being that I get to meet so many incredible artists. Before we start that, I just want to introduce you to our vice president and my co-facilitator, Mimi Goodman.
Hi. So I am Mimi Goodman, as Laura said. My pronouns are she, her, and I've been involved with PFLAG for over 25 years. My youngest child came out as gay, I'm trying to think now, 25 years ago, who now identifies as non-binary. And I always like to remind people that there was no language as non-binary. The language did not exist. And, without language, it's hard to define who you are. So the wonderful thing is that we now have these terms that people can see themselves in this language. So my wonderful non-binary child with their spouse just gave me one of the greatest gifts that you can get. I became a grandmother just about 2.5 months ago. So that's just been a beautiful joy and a gift. So I'm also in PFLAG because I have a gay son, and my gay son has been with his partner for 22 years. They live in London. They've been married for 6 years. They met 22 years ago at a Latin dance club, a little fact that Laura Goodman may not know, a Latin dance club, and they have been together ever since. So I just want to say that for us, the connection of the artist's world and PFLAG, this seems like a very natural one. And I think one of the reasons is that we work with parents who have these wonderful LGBTQ plus young people. And they are always pushing the boundaries. They push the boundaries and push us to see the world differently in terms of gender identity and expression. And I think when we can think about artists also do the same thing. Artists push ourselves to see the world a little differently, whether it's through color, whether it's through music, whether it's through whatever art form, they color our world in a different fashion. So we see this as just a beautiful, beautiful connection. And before we start, I have to thank our absolutely wonderful Lisa D'Amico, who not only is a fabulous artist, she's a fabulous friend, and she is the one who has helped forge this beautiful connection of the artist world and PFLAG. So we thank her tremendously, even though she's not on our screen. Giving it back to you, Laura.
So we are so excited to interview today Katie Elevitch, who is an accomplished award-winning singer, songwriter, storyteller, and educator. How amazing is that? So we are so excited to have you here, Katie. Thank you so much for doing this with us, for being a part of this experience with us. So the first question we have, how does your identity as a member of the LGBTQ community inform your art?
We have like 10 minutes. Well, first of all, I do just want to thank you for sharing your stories. I'm very much drawn to stories, the story behind the things that happen, whether it's creatively or otherwise. So that helps me to feel more connected in terms of this space that you're holding right now. So thank you. I'm 50 years old. So the journey that I've been on is very long, windy, and varied. Knowing that I was not straight, but not having the words from a quite young age. But always, always extremely creative. So I would say that for me, in general, the creative arts was a way to work through emotions, work through confusion, work through basically childhood trauma and all kinds of other things. And it's only really been more recently in the last 10 years, especially when I had my own brick and mortar storefront space in which I was more public facing, in which I really started to grapple more with the language of my identity, always more feeling more connected to myself as artist. And I think, and I remember actually a conversation I had early on in this moment of my life with Diana Wilkins, the former deputy director of the Rockland Pride Center. We were out to lunch and she said, "So what are you?" I said, "I'm an artist." And so I think, and still today, I would say, and this is part of what this project is that I received a grant for. One of the things that I'm working through and grappling with through my artistry right now in this personal, I call it a storytelling project. It's multi-disciplinary. Is where do I feel at home? What allows me to feel at home? And it's not as simple as what I feel like can be easily disseminated through the various LGBT centers. I mean, you would really have to, I think art allows us to get into the nuance of the things, especially so for myself, the way I identify right now, though it's been a journey, is pansexual, queer, non-binary woman. So, you know, good luck. But it has taken a long time to find language, and I've been not comfortable with language in general because my language has been the language of art. And the language of art is something that lives in the eye of the beholder, right? So, you know, it's wonderful. These are wonderful things to be talking about. And of course, I could sit here and talk to you for hours, you know, probably about it. Or I would love to see a continuation of these kinds of conversations. Especially, I'm very interested in intergenerational conversation and connection between queer creatives. That's something that I do in my community work right now with the open mics that I host and produce and the storytelling projects that I do. And my collaborators, I have many Gen Zs that I collaborate with. And strangely, as a Gen Xer, I find I've skipped over millennial, you know, I don't know, you know, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a social scientist, but for whatever reason, I feel very much, I'm finding parts of myself in my creative collaborations, connections, my mentoring with the Gen Z generation. There's sort of a fuck you kind of attitude of gender. You know, what, tell me about it. I don't know, you know, he, she, they, and not to, but my point is that it's that gender expansiveness. It's the creativity of being. It's inherent in the fashion and you know, that's always been, you know, that's always been, but unfortunately it wasn't as prominent and apparent to the greater audience because now we have social media and TikTok and we have all these things. So there's just more ability for queer people to tell their stories. So, I mean, that's really ultimately my artistry right now is about telling my story, which is very much informed by my queerness and by my journey and by, you know, better understanding myself and working through shame and working through confusion and how to be a part of a community. And that I was thinking about this preparing, but you know, I first came out as bisexual, which in the early 90s, late 80s was just a very difficult identity. And so in that, for a long time, I just didn't feel a part of the community, whatever that means, for a long time. And I still think it's just very problematic for people who are bisexual or who are more fluid. And the non-binary part is really, for me, more recent in like the last year. I was hesitant, but now I feel like I better understand how I fit into that. But before, even though I felt like I always was, I didn't understand how the language applied to me. So it's a generational, it's very interesting. You know, I could go on and on, but anyway, I hope I sort of answered the question.
And I just want to say to you, I think what you have said very much resonates for me, and I think very much would resonate for young people today, because first of all, everybody has a story. So just hearing storytelling, I think we all have our stories, and we all would love to be able to tell our stories. But I think the other thing is that I definitely think that Gen Z is a more fluid generation, and I think I can just identify with that with my own child, that whenever people say, well, what does it mean, and you know what the answer always is, non-binary is whatever it means to the non-binary person, that there's no one perfect answer or one perfect box that you have to fit in. So I love what you said, and we probably, right, Laura, could have a
Yes.
3 conversation.
I was thinking the same thing. Yes.
Yeah.
And we'll have to have it another time, maybe.
These small clips, or this introduction of you meeting and talking to different artists, different ages, different backgrounds, I hope it's an opening to more of these types of conversations. Is really, I was very honored and very glad that you thought to talk to me, because I've been feeling like I haven't had a voice to connect. I do in my little one-on-one or small group ways with my students or my mentors or whatever, but I do think it's important to talk about these things through the lens of creativity, through the lens of the life of an artist, or the voice of an artist, because all the things that you said in your introduction are true. You know.
Well, we very much appreciate everything that you have said. And I think maybe we had one other question. Maybe we have time for it, but we will.
You can edit.
You're right. Thank you. We're not so high tech. So, so I want to ask you if you think that art has the ability to change people's minds and hearts on issues. And an example of that would be maybe the issue of acceptance of the LGBTQ+ community. I mean, and if you feel that way, how do you think art, all art forms, could have an impact?
These are loaded questions.
Sorry.
I mean, in general, you know, I believe from my own life experience that art is inherently healing, and that both the creation of it for the artist, but also, especially when you get into your performing arts or your storytelling or your music, and when you have an audience, when you have something that energetically is a call and response and a give and a take, maybe it's even just these kinds of conversations, but that, I believe that active listening, that participatory component is healing, is potentially transformational. And it really all has to do ultimately, and this is sort of the work that I do in my educational pursuits, is what is the intention behind sharing the work with an audience. So yes, I can sing a song and write a song in the privacy of my own home, or, you know, Lisa or another artist could be making a painting. But what is the intentionality? Then you get, that's where your curators come in, your gallerists, your arts event producers. What is the intention behind bringing these artists together and creating those kinds of conversations? It sparks curiosity, it sparks openness, it sparks a connectivity to the humanity of all of us, right? So the stories that we share through our art, through our creativity, inherently the potential is there to connect us despite all of the things that we think are separating us, right? And some art is more difficult, if you will, or less, it doesn't bring us together as much as it might shock or, scare us. Some art brings us together and it's a little bit easier, but all of it, depending on, it will reach someone, right? It will reach someone. And so I believe that, and that's sort of the purpose behind the intentionality behind sort of all the things that I do. And once I figured that out, it helps me to better understand my way, in this world and as an artist. And I hope that then that also reflects outward, reaches outward, and helps others do the same. And so I think it's all art is really a conversation, really. If we go back, I'm not an art historian, but it's very easy to see once we start to learn about art and its history and how it impacts us over time. And so that's the same thing that I hope, especially queer artists, would see, and through social media. That's one way. We have so many young people on TikTok and doing all kinds of incredible storytelling through social media. It is unto itself a form of art, in that the level of storytelling is really exceptional and it reaches so many people. So I'm very excited about that.
We will definitely have to continue this wonderful conversation. Right, Laura?
Absolutely.
Katie, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you. We really enjoyed. I think I can speak for Laura. Right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank
Really
you
amazing.
so much. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad the dogs didn't bark. And they're being.
The hope is that you create beautiful art, and we hope that for all of our artists, beautiful art that does impact our world. So, thank you so much. And doing this in honor of Pride Month is just wonderful. So
thank you. I'm honored, and I'm so glad that I'd love to get to know you better and work with you again. So thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.